Hey guys, how you doing? Welcome back. I'm glad you're here. If you're new here, I'm Jimmy. We're making it work. We tend to drop things, so we got a gravity check shirt on, something that my wife makes for the channel. But this video, I wanted to go over some of these cars. I have pictures of some of these cars I did over the years. I have built a lot of cars, and I've made a few videos on the subject. I'll try to put a link to some of those videos up here, so you can check out some of my earlier videos talking about the cars I've done over the years. Starting in 1977-78 was my first car, a 68 Firebird convertible, and I went through a bunch of cars in the earlier videos, and I just kind of stopped. I haven't had the time to continue those videos. Well, now that I have a 62 Apache pickup truck, I wanted to continue on some of my history as far as building automobiles, trucks, cars, hot rods, drag cars, muscle cars, whatever you want to call them. I've basically dabbled in a lot of them. The only vehicles I haven't owned from Chevrolet is a Corvette and an El Camino. I've basically owned at least one of every other vehicle that Chevrolet makes. And I've also owned several Pontiacs. I started off as a Pontiac guy, but as Pontiacs became rarer and rarer, I started gravitating more towards Chevrolet. They were less expensive too. You might notice a trend in some of my videos. I tend to gravitate towards what I perceive as a better deal. Some people may not agree with that, but that's what I think. Everyone's got to row their own boat, right? Because banjos and stuff. So let me go over some of these pictures I've got back right over my shoulder here. I'll show you guys a little bit more history, some of the chapters in my life. I hope you guys enjoy it. Let's take a look. Alright guys, one of the first vehicles I wanted to talk to you about was, I think this was about 1986-87. My wife and I were recently married. I was a young man, obviously, of 23 years old, and I was obviously collecting cars and muscle cars and things like that. Customer came in with this Mazda pickup, 73 Mazda pickup. It had a blown-up engine. So I bought it from the customer for $50 with a blown-up engine. And I put an engine in it from, man, what was the company? It was 3 letters. Not LKQ. I'm thinking of the junkyard for some reason. I can't remember the name of that engine. I'm going to have to put down the video below what engine I put in this thing. I bought a crate engine, remanufactured, with a 3-year warranty at the time. And I painted the truck, fixed it up a little bit, had a little rust in the rockers you can see down here. I put the wheels and tires on it first. I started fixing rust and working on paint after I got it running, and I was driving it back and forth to work. I did a paint job on it, and that's what it looked like as my wife's Camaro in the background. This is at her house up in New York on Long Island. Better picture of that paint job is here. Sorry about the glare and stuff. I'm trying to keep the picture at a certain angle so you guys don't get too much glare. I put the red stripe on it just because when I got all done with the white, it looked a little too plain to me. So I painted that red stripe on it thinking it looked pretty cool. You got to remember too, this is the 80s. So I got a lot of compliments on that truck. And actually, someone made me a big enough offer that I didn't have that truck even a year, maybe a year and a few months, and someone made me a big offer where I could make some money on it, so I sold it. I used the money to go from my Chevelle. I had a 69 Chevelle at the time as well, to buy this 67 Camaro. I actually traded body for body with no engine, and I had a 400 small block in the Chevelle, and I took that engine out and I put it in a 67 Camaro. As you might imagine, that 400 small block had an Edelbrock Victor manifold and a 750 Holley double pumper, big old hydraulic, the biggest hydraulic cam I could get without changing the springs in the heads. I believe it was 292 duration and 510 lift, with 108 lobe centers, I want to say, from memory. It was a pretty good sounding engine. It had a really good rump to it. It was super fast. This car was really quick. And again, I painted this car. I put the engine in it. I got the fiberglass hood. I put the Z28 emblems on it just because I always loved Z28s. And 67, they were super rare and they didn't have emblems on them. But I put it on because I thought it looked cool, and I put the stripe down the side and stuff like that just to make it look cool. I didn't represent it as a Z28. I've always been a pretty honest guy. I just told people I thought they were cool, so I put the emblems on there. A lot of street races won with that car. Centerline wheels, 12-bolt rear end, 400 small block, and a pretty well-built Turbo 400 in that car. It was fast. That's a picture of the back. It had a lot of pitting in the tail light housings, so I just painted them black. Traction bars and all that kind of stuff. My brother-in-law, Nicky, he had a ratty old Grand Prix, and he said, "Man, can you paint this car for me? I see you're painting all these cars. Maybe you could throw some paint on the Grand Prix for me. I'll buy all the materials." I said, "Oh, okay, I don't have to buy anything. I can just paint it for you." So that's pretty much what happened. It was my brother-in-law. So I helped him out. I didn't charge him anything. I painted the car for him. And that's what it looked like the day after we painted it. He's getting gas at the gas station before he left. That's a different angle. It was single stage enamel with no rubbing or buffing, or I didn't color, sand, and buff it or anything. I just sprayed the single stage enamel on it. Came out really good, obviously. For the time, that was a super shiny looking paint job. I think he spent $300 on materials at the time because I made him buy pretty good paint. And it came out pretty well. He had to get a hubcap shortly after that one, but another picture of the car. Then I had a 68 GTO I bought. A customer was selling. She said it needed exhaust. The exhaust was rusty and the dual exhaust was a few $100s. She was tired of putting money in it. I bought this car for $1,500. It had 47,000 original miles on it. A little bit of rust. Original 68 GTO. Power disc brakes, power steering, and air conditioning. It was a really nice car. This is actually the car that I sold this car to get married to help pay for the wedding. My mother-in-law didn't have tons of money, so she paid for half and I paid for half, and I sold this car to get that done. I miss this car, but not as much as I love my wife. So, hi, honey. That's the interior. Obviously, I put the old Blaupunk radio and put some good speakers in it. The car really had a nice interior. It was actually really fast too. These old GTOs. A friend of mine bought a '79 Mustang GT and he thought it was real fast, and I beat him with my GTO. And not only that, the GTO was rode way nicer. It was almost like a luxury car, and it was faster. This is my wife's '78 Camaro. Had some rust in the fenders. I started fixing it up. I actually did all the body work on this car, and I went to change the oil. I put a camshaft in it actually and changed the oil one day at work. They had a bad cam and it was popping out of number 8, and it rounded off the exhaust lobe, so the exhaust was going out the intake. So I took it to work, put the cam in it on a Saturday, and did an oil change obviously and all the other stuff that goes along with that kind of a job. And driving it home I got wrecked. Someone pulled out in front of me and I hit him. And then I made this car into a Z28. And I could not for the life of me find pictures of it as a Z28. I changed it to blue. I put the Z28 stripes down the side, all the moldings, put a Z28 hood, Z28 rear spoiler. That was a super nice car. I put Z28 wheels on it, painted them blue. I wish I could find a picture for you guys to show you, but trust me, it came out good. This was a '70 GMC I bought not long after that from my dad. I think I want to say I paid him $1,200 or $1,500 for this truck, and it was actually pretty nice. Had some rust in the cab corners and stuff, and I fixed all that. This was in, gosh, I want to say '89 or so. I bought this truck from him. After that, I moved on to a '69 Chevelle. I found a really nice '69 Chevelle, and I bought this car at the time. It was pretty expensive. It was considered a high-end purchase at $5,500. And this car, I lived down in South Florida near Coral Springs, and I bought this car. It was one of my dream cars I always wanted. It reminded me of my GTOs and my Chevelles I had back when I was a kid. If you saw my earlier video, I had a '69 Chevelle that I bought with a 6-cylinder, and I converted it over to the 400 small block. That's the one I traded for the '67 Camaro. This Chevelle, this was a fun car with the 350 4-barrel, dual exhaust, turbo 350 transmission. It only had a 10-bolt rear end, but I remedied that. I started doing a lot of work to it and making it faster and faster. With the 350, with the tweaking and the intake and carb and a cam, I got it down to 1340s at the drag strip. And little by little I fixed it up. I put the wheels on it, which later on I regretted those wheels. They look nice in the pictures, but I don't know if they really fit the car too well. So I ended up changing those wheels out later on. It was a super nice car. Black on black on black. I decided I was going to make it a little faster. I took the air conditioning out of it, which I regretted, like a dummy. I let this guy Joe Straight talk me into making it into more of a drag car, a street legal drag car. And he said, with air conditioning in there, you're going to give up a lot of performance. And I shouldn't have listened. I should have left the air conditioning. Because one of the reasons I got rid of this car later on was because I didn't have the air conditioning in it, and it was starting to bother me. It was getting hot. My little boy Jeremy, when I had car cover on there. This is the back of the car after I was putting the engine in it. For the track to be legal, you had to have an ignition, a battery voltage kill switch. You can see I had the aftermarket fuel pump and fuel filter showing down below. It had a 15-gallon fuel cell, all half-inch fuel lines, Had a Dominator, Holly Dominator carburetor with a Victor race manifold on a 454. I put some centerline wheels on it. This car was fast. I ran mid-11s with no traction. I have BF Goodrich drag radials on the back, and I could not get the car to hook up. So I had to leave the line at an idle and roll into the throttle until I was well into second gear, close to third gear, before I could hammer down the throttle. And I still ran a mid-11 with I basically had like a 1.860 foot time. So if I would have shaved that down to about a 1.4, 1.5 60 foot time, this car was easily a 10-second car. The engine dynoed at 605 horsepower at the crank, not in the car. I put a 12 bolt in it, and the money started piling up with this car. I'll show you some more pictures of it. The money started to really pile up with this car. It had the big cowl hood on it, 5-inch cowl hood. There it is at the drag strip. Oh, we're back around to the beginning. So there you go, guys. Let's wrap this up. Now, obviously, there's a lot more cars. I don't have pictures of the 71 Nova. I don't have pictures of the of a bunch of cars that I had that only for a short period of time. If I only had them 3 or 4 months. Some cars I played with them a little while, got a good offer and resold it. So I don't have pictures of a lot of those cars. I'll do another video on I built this 49 Chevy truck. And that's where I was doing the paint job. I did an LS swap, had an S10 frame, all kinds of cool stuff. Some of you guys might have seen pictures in some of my videos. Every once in a while I throw a picture in the video. And then I wanted to build a 32 Ford Vicky. I'll do a full video on these cars later on. This is what it looked like when I bought it. Parts in a box and all. And then when I was getting the frame together, Tim over at Clark Hot Rods helped build that frame for me. I built the motor. Tranny, I welded all the mounts and the suspension onto it and all that, and I made a whole car out of it. And I'll have more pictures, and I'll show you guys in another video some of that stuff. That's more recent. That's in the past 10 or 12 years. So there's been a lot of ups and downs, a lot of money I spent on a lot of projects, and I lost on a lot of cars, and I made money on a lot of cars. The labor I never got back, but it wasn't about making money on the labor. It was just for my love of cars. I had a lot of hot rods and muscle cars and trucks. I've probably had 6 or 7 Chevy trucks. This is like my 8th Chevy truck. Like I said, sometimes I'd buy and sell a couple vehicles a year. I wouldn't keep them that long, but anyway, I guess I'm kind of rambling, but there's a lot of history as far as body work and welding and engine building and all kinds of things that I don't go into in the shop because I'm a flat rate mechanic to make my living and take care of my family. But my love of cars makes it so that I'm usually working on something at nights and weekends, especially when I was younger. I did a lot of that stuff. So we'll go over some of that in another video. I don't want to make this one go too long. So I appreciate you guys watching some more about my history, some of the cars I've had over the years. And I'll make one more video about this at least a few weeks from now. I want to put something together with all my last 6 or 8 cars that were some of my nicest cars. 89 IROC and things like that you guys I think will get a kick out of. I got to dig up some pictures. So it's been a pleasure having you here. Torque that like button at the bottom of the screen if you want to see some more of this kind of content. Subscribe. I do automotive repairs, automotive history obviously now, tool reviews, and I have my 62 Apache project truck I'm doing videos on now too. And I'll have them all in different categories on my channel if you want to look up some of those videos in different categories. I'd appreciate it if you did that. You guys are awesome. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video.